Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with Clark, or what we call Slider Haymond, Chief Operating Officer at DEWM. Slider, thanks for chatting with me today.
Hey, Otto, thanks for having me.
All right, so pretty cool. So you've got a great background, one similar to mine. So of course it's great. Flying jets in the Air Force. Talk to me a little bit about, your Air Force, how you got into the Air Force, a little bit of, what you did in the Air Force, and then how that transitioned to, working at a cool startup doing awesome things.
Yeah, like a lot of pilots, I started my career in college trying to be an engineer. And that, of course, is a bad idea for a lot of us. And so realizing quickly that my path is in the Air Force. I joined ROTC while in school and went that route. Graduated, got a pilot slot, and eventually found my way to the Strike Eagle, the F-15E. So for those that don't know, it's a two-tail, two-engine airplane that you can see behind Otto there. Very similar to that one, except we bring two humans to the fight, except one. And, our roles in that airplane is multi-role. So we do air-to-air, but we also do a lot of air-to-ground. So I found myself deploying pretty quickly. I was a young second lieutenant, I guess first lieutenant, deploying in support of Inherent Resolve, fighting ISIS when I was in Laken Heath, so out in the UK for our first assignment. So got my talents sharpened pretty quickly there, and dropping weapons in hate for the defense of our nation. So it was a lot of fun though.
Awesome. Until you flew, 60-ish combat missions while doing that. And now you're building training tools for next generation of fighter pilots. What did you see in combat that, led you to believe there might be some improvements we can make in our own training infrastructure?
Yeah, it was weird flying around, Iraq and Syria, where at the time there was really no danger. And if you think about that, how, I'm carrying weapons to war, taking out enemies, and we have complete air superiority. Is that realistic? And that's how we've been fighting for the last 30 plus years. And so it's something that we've grown accustomed to in the Air Force and probably in the DOW writ large. But in reality, unfortunately, the next fight probably isn't going to be that easy. And the question then starts looming, are we training like we're supposed to be? Are we training the way that we should be in order to prepare ourselves for the next fight?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Current fightitis. Nice thinking about the next one. So what does, if you were to take yourself out of that scenario and let's look forward to, let's say, a higher end conflict where we don't have air dominance or supremacy, what does a dense, modern surface to air threat environment look like, and what will pilots face that they haven't faced before?
Yeah, when we don't have to look far. If you look just at the border of Ukraine and Russia right now, I mean, there's plenty of surface-to-air missile systems, jammers, EW systems up and down that line, mostly on the Russian side, let's say, but there's probably stuff that we don't know about on the Ukrainian side as well. And, as an operator trying to fight in that environment in degraded operations, whether it be communication, whether it be GPS, whether it be systems that could jam your onboard systems personally, you're going to be fighting through a dense environment that is unlike anything that we've trained to. Probably the best bet we have is going into a simulator and turning stuff off and degrading things via software. But when you have air under your butt flying in an emitter and a red flag, there's only so many systems that they can bring online in the desert because that's just all we have. And they're so costly to be able to produce more that it's really prohibitive in order to create that environment that's more realistic. That's really the whole idea of where we got in with DEWM.
Yeah, so the ranges, well, just, for those that don't know, but how do we simulate currently? So NTTRs, the Nevada test training range up in north of Vegas. There's a couple other ranges. So range space is an issue. So especially as our fighters and aircraft and drones go faster and longer and the sensors and weapons go out further, you need a lot more space to compete and train to. Hence the reason a lot of simulators are, finding a lot of advanced, as well as AR, VR technologies to bring the fight closer. But why is it hard to replicate, I would say, EW and threat infrastructure in these scenarios?
Yeah, that's a great question. The current paradigm is we essentially need to replicate radar systems with actual radars. And when you're talking a one-for-one comparison, those aren't cheap systems to build, the S300 or CSA-21 or something crazy. they're very modern, they're very advanced, they're very capable, and they're putting out a lot of power. And so the paradigm up to now has been, well, we've got to take large amplifiers when we need a lot of power to do that. So we need large generators, creates a very large footprint. We are no longer mobile. And now you can see the price tag just shooting up, up and up. And with our budgetary process, how it is, we can only buy so many of these systems over the years. And so if you go out to the NTTR right now, there's incredible systems with incredible people running them. And I don't have a number for you. We're in the tens, probably under 100. Let's probably for an easy math. And we're talking in a space of 200 by 200 miles. So a huge area with arguably not enough emitters inside of that space. And they're not all on at the same time, unfortunately, because they're now restricted to how many people are out there being able to do it. So we consider, and I think the Air Force does as well, those systems as high fives or high fidelity, high end systems that are essentially trying to be a one-for-one replication of the systems that they're out there portraying to be. And we're trying to come in at a cost point and a mobility point and a swap type discussion such that you can buy way more lower powered systems that produce a similar to the same effect as these high end systems to complement them and make them work together at the same time.
All right. So that brings us into DEWM. That's obviously, why it was founded, to try to do that. Talk to me about what you guys are actually doing, or if you have any, traction.
Yeah, great question. So the systems that we developed is called the DART. It's DEWM's attritable radar target. And it was initially kicked off in conjunction with the Weapons System Evaluation Program, or Wessip as it's called. And the idea here is we are out there dropping bombs, shooting missiles at targets that are not the threat represented, especially in the EW space. So there's a mission set that I'm sure many of the listeners know called SEED, or Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses. And the whole idea behind this is we need to go find these systems that are targeting our airplanes, figure out where they are, and then drop weapons on them to destroy them or suppress them so that the follow-on aircraft can come in and do their jobs. And this entire mission set initially was designed the F4, F-16, but now the F-35 is the seed asset, and it's where we're going in the future. And if you don't realize it, there's not many other airplanes we're buying these days except F-35. And so with the advent of the F-35 and coming online in Wessip, they realized we need to create targets so that they can drop bombs so they don't shoot any missiles a lot easier on the actual radar sites. But if we go back to our previous conversation, those cost too much. We can't drop, a $30,000 bomb on a $5 to $15 million target. The economics of that don't make sense. And so in conjunction with Wessip, they helped us get a simmer phase 2 initially, so direct to phase 2. And we took some technology that our CEO had previously already done while he was active duty in the Air Force, changed it up a little bit, made it better, and created our first DART prototype to take out to Wessip. To end that story, it has become very successful in that testing phase. So the airplanes see it, the weapons that need to see it. They identify it correctly. They're identifying it at ranges that are tactically relevant for all of us. And being able to shoot weapons and drop bombs on targets really completes the kill chain that prior to this point, we're just kind of faking it. We get to the end and we just don't ever press the button, which again is negative training for an aircrew.
Well, to be a naysayer, wouldn't I just prefer to fly in a simulator? If I can do this in a simulator, wouldn't that be a lot cheaper? Why is that not better?
Yeah, you know better than all of us. There's nothing that can replicate hair on your butt and getting out there in the range and the comm drills and the feels of the jet and the G's and the actual danger of mountains and other airplanes. We were able to kind of disassociate that in the sim. I think there's a lot of good training that happens there, but there's nothing that's ever going to replicate what we're going to have to do out in the real world.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you take off and your radar's degraded. You can't really have those funky electrons zipping around your jet in the simulator because it either always works or you turn it off.
Right. It's all pristine for sure.
Yes, and coordination with your V1s just fell out. Now, who's going to take over those targets and restructure that? So, yeah, that's definitely Pretty cool. Talk to me then about the engineer. How do you guys approaching the engineering challenge? Because what you just stated is to replicate this thread, it takes power, it takes people, a lot of different items, then to make it mobile, but you're trying to do it cheap. So you're putting big generators that don't move, so you can't make it mobile. How are you guys tackling that from an engineering capability set and actually replicating threats as they really are?
Yeah, the physics of it are pretty interesting. And the capability is partly us, but it's also partly in the sensors that are coming online. If you're in your C model and I'm in my F-15E, like we're probably not seeing this on our RWRs. So we are not creating a signal powerful enough to trip our radar warning systems that are on traditional 4th gen platforms. But 5th gen, different systems that are coming online that are more sensitive, whether it's HTS pods or those types of EW systems, they're able to see things at a much more small level. And so the power required isn't as high as it would be for a radar warning receiver. So that's how we get away with producing a lower power device, but still tactically seeing at relevant ranges. So what you see from if you hop on our website or on our LinkedIn, you'll see a device that is about the size of a dish network dish. It's about 2 feet wide dish. That's our C-band version. I'll talk about the different versions in a minute. And in the back of it, we have, a software-defined radio that is completely open architecture. So the customer can come in and want to run a certain signal with different parametrics. They could do that. They don't need to pay us to create a mode for them and so that we can, take more money off the table. It is completely open so they can plug and play whatever numbers they want. And the signal to come out is the signal that will be replicated. And obviously there's hardware limitations to that. And that's why we've gone with the different versions that we call kind of the family of systems in the C-band, the S-band, and the X-band arenas.
So there's a lot of, use case there. Are you finding international interest or are you focused mostly on the US?
Yeah, so the initial interest was with making a trittable system that blows up. And that's how we designed it. It's so cheap that you could blow it up, throw it on the next one and keep going. But what we're finding is a lot of our customers initially are, fighter wings, maybe Air National Guard wings that got a brand new F-35. They were flying 810s before. And they're saying, crap, how do we train? We need something. This is a very capable system. How do we go out and get some emitters? How much are those? 15 million? We don't have that, And so we can only get one, whereas with ours, you can get multiple, a ton more than that. So that same paradigm is happening with international customers. They're getting F-35s and they're saying, this is awesome. We want to use it more. How do we go out and use it? And yeah, so that is happening. We are in those conversations. It's as you know, as an entrepreneur yourself, it is a whole new world that we're learning quickly of ITAR regulations and all that kind of stuff. So we're weeding through that and we'll get there. But yeah, the international scene is going to be just as big, if not bigger. I think today there's more F-35s outside of the US than inside. So if that tells you where our customers lie, that's what we're going to be.
Well, it is pretty cool. The F-35, the Israeli F-35 is going into Iran. Not one damage, and pretty impressive because that was not they're using the latest technology from Russia to defend themselves. So
totally. Yeah. Very impressive.
Systems matter, but being able to train, there is a big stake, if you will.
For sure.
So what did you learn in the Air Force, maybe your time, at Wessip, you were with Combat Hammer out in Salt Lake. What did you learn that's been applicable as you've now gone into the entrepreneur role of trying to deal with the Air Force or DOW as a customer?
Yeah, I'll talk to the active duty or even DOW, listeners first. You guys have so much control and power. And it's something I didn't realize till I got out in affecting where these things can go. And even young lieutenants who I'm working with today that, they just have drive and can get stuff done. And it really could benefit the small businesses out there, especially when you're on these SIBR type contracts. It's something that we've really worked towards, eventually getting off of that and moving towards the program record. But early on stages, having one-on-one conversations and getting to know the customer has been pivotal. It also helps that a lot of our friends, me and there's another fire guy in our company, as well as another Intel patch, that's our leadership team. we know all of our friends are in leadership now in the different squadrons. And so that network has been helpful to be able to tap into and say, hey, we got this thing. We think it's going to work. Would you mind throwing some jet time on us and seeing if it helps? And, having a good relationship with those folks has been very helpful to motivate us and test hypothesis and be able to get us further along faster without having to go through probably the traditional, AFRL sequence and then years on that train. And who knows where that's going to lead you. So maybe we've cheated and getting there faster just by knowing some people. But if you ain't cheating, you ain't tried, as what they probably said during pilot training. Like it's something that we're going to take advantage of because we know the guys need it. And it's something I needed. It's something that you probably needed as well in your time, especially at WIC, to be able to get out there and have a more robust actual training environment.
Are you finding more traction with like the guard or the reserve test groups versus active duty?
Yeah. So initially, most of our customers today are Air National Guard wings and units. I'll say ACC and big ACC. There's a lot of work to be done there, and I think they're doing. They're moving mountains and they're trying. That's a big beast, and that's a big ship to steer. Whereas when we get contacted from a small unit who's in a state that has control over their own money, they can kind of steer quicker and they're able to adapt faster. And so what we're hoping is we're getting success with the Air National Guard units and hopefully making a big enough wave so that the Air Force sees it and we can come with demonstrated credibility that they can pivot as well. Again, we're not trying to say this is going to replace these hi-fi systems. I think it's a complementary area where you're going to need both for various reasons.
Yeah, it's almost like the low-high mix. You have the high mix, which is the twin-tailed, twin-engine fighter, and then you got the low mix, the throwaways, the F-16s.
I couldn't agree more.
Just a hit on my Viper brothers. But awesome. So what's the biggest lessons learned you've had from like just entrepreneurship, because the Air Force is not a small business. You don't have all the functions, even though you may oversee them, you're not actually doing it. What's been your kind of biggest takeaways of, oh my God?
I think where we're really hitting a lot of nails on the head is with market fit and having people that know the problem and having people that have a technical solution to that problem that has already been demonstrated has been so easy to be able to walk in and say, here's what we've done. Here's all the success. This is what we're doing today. Do you want in? And it's almost, I hate saying it would sell itself, but we've been able to bring a lot of demonstrated capability and with proven track record that's tough to go against it. So that's been very helpful from an entrepreneur's perspective. I have been blown away by how many hats you have to wear, especially if you're selling to the Department of War. I mean, it is insane. And so for good measures, a lot of them, and there's a lot of no monsters out there that have good intentions behind the reason they're saying no, whether it's security or safety or that kind of stuff. But the fighter pilot of me is just going to athlete through it and try to win no matter whatever it takes, which can be a difficult wall to bust through sometimes when you're working with the Department of War. But at the end of the day, it's fulfilling because I'm out of the active duty world, but I feel like I'm still contributing in a different way that will help the guys on the field, execute even better.
So for those guys that are looking to get out, you went and got your MBA. How much did that help you in this transition?
Yeah, I think the MBA is an interesting experience. If I hadn't had the GI Bill and, got it for free type of deal, had I done it again, I don't know. What has been helpful though is I'm reaching sometimes a problem and I say, I learned something about this. I may not remember what it was, but there was something here that I was supposed to do, or there's some sort of accounting thing here that I need to go back and look up. And maybe that's what school's for. I don't know, but it at least highlights the fact that I've now probably shown spotlights in the corners of my weaknesses, and I haven't quite made them strengths yet, but I've been able to identify, hey, when we get to this point, we're going to need to get help, and where we're no longer capable to do it ourselves, we need to go outside and get those skills and bring them in. That's where we're really at as a company, and we're expanding a team and covering down on those skill sets that, whether it's business based or compliance based or whatnot, we're bringing those in house to be able to do it ourselves and do it more efficiently. So yeah,
How much value do you see in the network of your MBA?
almost none, unfortunately, currently. And maybe that's because I did mine online through UNC. Great people. I still stay in touch with them, but that they haven't quite been there to help me with this endeavor. So maybe in the future, but
You're also in an industry that you're super familiar with. It's not like you're going to sell a commercial SaaS product to,
right.
you know.
I will say what was helpful, and I think the more helpful in our industry was, which no longer exists, is the Defense Ventures Fellowship. If you heard about
They
it.
killed that.
Yeah, I think, as I understand, they killed it about a year ago or so, or maybe more. And that was incredible. And so, for those that don't know, I essentially took 2 months and became an intern at a company called Hermes, which is making hypersonic, eventually airliners. Right now, they're hypersonic drones, strike capable drones. And so I was able to go in, share some of my expertise, and really open my eyes to small business and growing businesses are like. And so anyway, that was much more helpful. I think AFWorks is doing similar programs. So if those are available, totally take advantage of those. I would highly recommend it. And SkillBridge, I think that's free lunch money for anyone that's trying to get out and do something different.
Very cool. So let's just talk big picture kind of perspective. Give me a perspective on high level drones, but let's say kind of more the CCA type drones. How do you think that's going to impact warfare?
I'm excited for it. I have a few friends that have been early on the ground level working it, both inside and outside the Air Force or DOW. I think it's very capable, and I think it could be huge. If I'm flying my Strike Eagle and I have a Wizzo that's capturing 4 or 5 of these things, setting them out up front, doing the dirty work while we're able to stay safe, that mentality makes a lot of sense to me. I think the application and the execution of that is going to be very difficult, not insurmountable, but I'm excited to see what is possible down the road. Do I think that we're ever going to have no pilots? I personally don't, but I guess time will tell on that, but I'm excited to see where the technology leads us.
How about the challenges in the Pacific with the near peer fight? What's your take on that?
So I am still a reservist part-time, and I'm actually in the AOC in the Pacific. So I keep my thumb on the pulse when I'm out there, and it's pretty interesting. And what I can't conceptualize is how well we did in World War II, but how difficult it feels today. And maybe I'm giving us too big of a pass for World War II, that it was just easy and we just took it over. That's probably overstating it. But I felt like what we're looking at today feels almost more difficult. And I don't know if that's because we have too much information or we're assessing the distances in a different mindset now. But it is a difficult problem, especially with how far these weapons can go out and reach out and get us. So where we need to pre-position, where we need to be airborne, is it solvable? I hope so. Is it solved right now? I don't know. So I think there's a lot that could go into it, and hopefully we never have to crack those cases and actually executing that stuff. But yeah, it's a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, but the tyranny of distance is a big deal, and you've got to get forces close enough, but our fighter jets are capable, can't get close enough because they have no airfields to take off from where they have the range to do that. And if it's on a carrier, can you sacrifice a $2-3 billion carrier with 1 or 2 long range weapons? So that's a risk probably not worth taking. So you pull them back. Now your fighters can't get that far without refuelers, but they got shot down. So it's challenging. And how much does the fog and friction and the credit to their weapons actually go? That's that, risk matrix you're trying to jump through. So,
well, and we trained to perfection that the enemy's weapons work every time. And we see now Russia that that's not quite the case. And so to your point, where does the enemy lie on that scale? We're not going to know until night 1, I guess.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right. So we're going to do a quick, you hear on other podcasts, lightning round. I'm going to give you a statement. Just kind of give me your definition or thoughts behind it as it relates to your experience or to what you are. So train like you fight.
Train like you fight. That's critical to our company and to my ethos as well. To me, If you're faking it and you're cheating, and essentially, you're just going to do yourself harm when the fight actually shows up. So train like your fight's huge.
One myth about EW training you wish you could kill.
That just because I have something on doesn't mean I don't have to hit you. And what I mean by that is steering the signals for our devices, and that really all devices that are in our space, is paramount. And just because I have a device on in an airplane that should see it in range, unless I churn that device and make sure it's hitting the airplanes, it's not going to see you. And so we get a lot of questions about, why don't I see it? It's like, well, you need to. It's just education at that point, and it's probably not the myth, but it's the one that came to mind.
Yeah, that's fair. What's your favorite real world scenario to teach like EW fundamentals?
So we were in June Wessip here at Hill. We had a few darts out in the range. This is the Utah Test and Training Range. And there was a combined shot where F-35s found the darts, passed it down to the F-16s that were low altitude, so they didn't have their HTS pods on, and were able to pop up, shoot actual harms, and have the F-35s churn and do a simultaneous SDB drop all in the same spot, which was a first for the Air Force, and demonstrating the capability of the tactic. It was huge. It was massive. And to be able to have those weapons impact all at the same time. On that same day, we brought on another dart, and this young lieutenant F-35 pilot, she rolls in and finds the dart and maps, they put down a map and selected the wrong target. And she dropped an SDB, an actual SDB on that target, which was not near the dart. And so the dart never went down. And so it kept transmitting. And she on the radio said, I don't know what's wrong, but the signal's still there. And the instructor says, yeah, because you didn't hit it. And so it just was like, but every time I press the button, the signal stops. Like, this is new to me, And again, these are real world experiences that our pilots need to see today in a sterile, safe environment before they go to war.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that. Like at Wessip, which is, Weapons Evaluation System Program. So that's where you take fighter pilots and I imagine others, but you shoot weapons. And so instead of in simulators or simulated pickles where your computer's doing all the calculations, missiles are coming off and bombs are dropping. So you've done one of those and you feel your airplane shake, and then you see this thing run off and it goes that way and you think it should be going that. Oh my God. Correct. So just, seeing that real world, it's just that real training that matters, of difference between a simulator and what you're doing. So I think that's awesome. Is there an underrated stakeholder who makes or break EW training?
Underrated stakeholder.
We think like you guys, get your stuff. Is there someone in this whole chain of EW training that doesn't get the credit they should?
It's probably the poor schmucks that are out there day in, day out, driving in the middle of a desert so that you and your 15 minutes of fame can go out and win and go back and drink beers with the bros. And I didn't realize the amount of support that we got as fighter pilots until really this job. And I'm sitting in that truck bouncing around this dirt road to go out and put one of these devices out there so that the F-35 can come in like a hero and win. Good. I don't want that. They don't need to be like the fighter pilot shouldn't be thinking about that guy. Like, he's obviously got a lot more going on. But I think we as an Air Force, there's a lot of credit to the range personnel that is probably more deserving that we don't give. And a lot of them are very smart, educated people doing hard work because they love it and they love giving back in their way. So yeah, kudos to them. Would I love them to be more in the engineering world instead of having to drive on dirt road? Yeah. Can autonomy fix that? Yeah, probably. And so maybe we can figure out ways so that we can better utilize these guys. But at the end of the day, the people that are out there day in, day out working hard is pretty impressive.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. 5 years from now, where's Doom? And by the way, Doom is spelled DEWM, not.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's disruptive electronic warfare machines. Yeah, good. 5 years from now, Doom, from an emitter perspective, we've completed the family of systems. We're out there. We've probably improved it. We have some some interesting things coming down the pipe that will make technology better, faster, stronger type of deal. But I think in the grand scheme of things, we want to be on every range, every MOA in the country and in the world. And such that it's just not helping the fighter guys. And we haven't really touched this just because you and I are fighter pilots, but there's a lot of stuff that are happening on our ground-based brethren that are out there DFing, finding the EW stuff from the ground, and they need similar training technology. There's also stuff that we could do. We're repping red signals today. Who's to say we can't go out and rep blue signals and create confusion and more RF in the airspace to confuse our enemies from maybe a decoy or a spoofing type perspective. So there's a lot of lanes that we haven't explored yet, a lot of fruit that's still on the tree, and we're just excited to be here and having the success that we have currently.
So good. Love what you're doing, and man, it matters for our nation. So appreciate it. Folks want to follow DEWM, get in touch with you because you got a wing commander that's got some extra bucks, send you your phone, some help. How best would they do that?
Yeah, our website is DEWM.io. We're on LinkedIn, DEWM. I'm the one that answers all of those calls and emails. So hit me up. Haymond@DEWM.io is my email. And happy to field any of those questions, obviously.
All right, Slider, this has been fun. I look forward to your success and seeing you around the block.
All right, Otto, appreciate it, man.
Cheers.
See you.